Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Yoma Daf Tezvav contains three pretty disparate sugyas. The Gemara is first going to offer another solution to a contradiction between two Mishnayos as far as the order of the avodos in the Beis Hamikdash. Then the Gemara will explain why the previous answer doesn't hold of this answer and this answer doesn't hold of the other answer. Then the Gemara will refer back to an old machlokas that was mentioned as to how the blood was applied to the walls of the Mizbeach in the service of the Karpan Tamid. The Gemara will explain the opinion that says that it was performed in a funny way, not the classic way, and the Gemara will have a couple of questions and answers as to how that opinion understands the blood application. The Gemara then goes to another topic, which is the four different lishkos surrounding the Beis HaMoked, the four different offices surrounding the room in which Kohanim stayed in the Beis HaMikdash, and what their use was, and how there's a contradiction as to what they were, and a resolution to the two. So, as we begin a few lines into the Daf, the Gemara has been discussing a contradiction between two Mishnayos in Maseches Yoma, one in the first parak, that is our parak, and one in the second parak, which is coming up, discussing which was first in the order of the avoda in the Beis Hamikdash. Was it the burning of the ketoros in the morning, or was it the preparation of the neros in the menorah in the morning? Now, according to the first parak, the Brisa there, it first lists the ketoros and then it lists the neros. And the second parak, it first lists the neros and then the ketoros. We've already seen one answer, which was that of Abaye. Well, Abaye said that we are in the opinion of the Rabbanan here, who hold that the cleaning of the neros was interrupted by ketoros in the middle. So our first Mishnah is discussing the ketoros in the middle and then the two neros that follow. And in the next parak, it's going to discuss the ketoros in the middle and then the two neros which preceded it. The Gemara now says there's another answer, and that is that of Rav Papa. And he says that it's actually the two different Mishnayos represent the different opinions of the Rabbanon and Abba Shol. The Rabbanon, as we said, hold that the clearing of the neros was interrupted with ketoros in the middle. It was first 5 neros cleared, then ketoros, and then 2. So that's our Mishnah here, and that's our Mishnah, which is referring to the ketoros and the 2 neros that followed. Abba Shol, however, holds that the ketoros was all done after all the neros were finished. There was an interruption in the neros, and that was to do a different service, the service of putting the blood on the walls of the Mizbeach. But all the ketoros was all performed after all the neros were finished being cleared in the morning. Therefore, the Mishnah in the first parak, which says that the ketoros was before some neros, that's the Rabbanan. The Mishnah in the second parak, which says that the ketoros was after neros, that is referring to after all the neros, that's the opinion of Abba Shol. So now the Gemara says that there's a problem here. And the problem is that the end of the Mishnah in the third parak seems to go back to saying that the ketoros happened before the neros. Because if you look at the Mishnah over there, it continues discussing the avoda as it was performed in the Yom Kippur service over there. And it says that the Kohen Gadol would have to shecht the carbon tamid in one soup. He wouldn't finish the shechita, he would give it over to somebody else to finish because he also had to catch the blood. And he quickly caught the blood. And then he went to do the ketoros, and afterwards to prepare the neros. So you see that the ketoros in this version, in the second half of the brisa there, switches to being back before the neros. Now if you're going to go like Rav Papa's approach, that each one's a different opinion, it comes out that in the first parak we are listing ketoros before the neros, that's the opinion of the Rabbanan. Then in the beginning of the Mishnah, in the second parak, we list the neros before the ketoros, that's Abba Shol. And then in the end of the same Mishnah, we go back to saying ketoros before the neros, that's already the opinion of the Rabbanan. It's going back and forth, Rabbanan, Abba Shol, Rabbanan. Whoever says, yeah, it's back and forth, Rabbanan, Abba Shol, Rabbanan, that's what our Papa holds, that's what it is. And now the Gemara says, now I understand why Abai didn't want to say that pshat. He doesn't like the fact that it goes back and forth. But why didn't Rav Papa want to say Abai's pshat? That it's referring to the ketoros in the middle of the neros, and in one Mishnah it says the ketoros is after the first half of the neros, and one it says before the second half of the neros. So the Mishnah says that the problem with that pshat is that in the first Mishnah, in the first parak, it talks about ketoros and the 2 neros that follow, and then afterwards it talks about ketoros and the 3 neros and the 5 Neros which preceded, because it first talks about Neros and then Ketoris. So that means that you're first listing the second half of the avoda, and then afterwards listing the first half of the avoda. That's out of order, and that's why that pshat is not so great, and that's why Rav Papa did not like that pshat. All right, now the Gemara refers to a machlokes which we had seen between Rav Shimon Ish HaMitzpeh and the Mishnayos and Maseches Tamid, discussing how the blood of the Karban Tamid was applied to the wall of the Mizbeach. So we've seen that the Chachamim say that it's performed like a regular Karban Ola. Karban Ola is always performed with 2 dabs that hit all 4 walls. First you do the northeast corner, which means you get on the north wall and the east wall. Then you go all the way around, you do the southwest corner, and you get the west and the south wall. So therefore, that's like a regular Karban Ola, that's how it was performed. Now, Shimon Ish HaMitzpeh said no, the second dabbing was different. It was a separate dab on the west wall and on the east wall. You split that one up. And that's how you normally do it for a Karban Chatas. Normally a Karban Chatas has 4 separate dabs, 1 for each wall. So Gemara says, where was Rav Shimon Ish HaMitzpeh get this from? Gemara says because he darshans a pasuk that you're supposed to have some of the Karban Chatas apply to this Karban Ola. And describing the Karban Tamid, the pasuk says, "Usir izim echad lachatos lashem al olas hatamid." Says you should do a chatas on the olas hatamid. It means to say you should do some chatas work, some chatas avoda on the Karban olas hatamid. So the Karban Ola, which is a Talmud, although it's a Karban Ola, should have some aspect of chatas to it, and that aspect is that the second application of blood should be done the way you do it on a chatas, the west wall separately and the south wall separately, not both of them in one splash on the corner. Alright, the Gemara is now going to have 6 questions on this. Why do we do it this way? Why couldn't we have done it differently? And the Gemara will answer them each one by one. First of all, the Gemara says, well, if Shimon's Ish HaMitzpeh sources from the fact that it says that you have to apply chatas halachos to the Karban Ola, the Olas Talmud, so let's do both. Let's apply the blood, first of all, like an Ola, and then, like a chatas, let's do the northeast corner and the southwest corner like an Ola, and then let's do all 4 walls like a chatas. So Gemara says, you never find the blood is used twice. Once blood is put on the Mizbeach, the rest of the blood is poured out. You don't put it on the Mizbeach again. Where do you ever find such a thing? So the Gemara says, what kind of kasha is that? Where do you ever find that a application of blood is split and half of it is done like an ola and half of it is done like a chatas? You never do something like that. Obviously, there's a special halacha here. The Torah is telling you to do something you never do anywhere else. So why can't you reuse it just like you never reuse the blood anywhere else? The Gemara says that's different. That's different. To reuse it and say I'm going to do 2 total applications, one set like an ola, one set like a chatas, that can't be. But to say that I'll just split up the second application on the corner and I'll do the west wall and then the south wall instead of in one shot, that's a big deal. So I'm stopping in the middle of the application. That's not such a wild thing to do, and therefore it makes sense that the Torah is telling me to do that, and not that it's saying I should do something totally weird, which is to put 2 complete applications of the blood on the wall. Okay, the Gemara's second question is, and if you're going to do it a little bit like a chatas and a little bit like an ola, then the first application in the northeast corner, which is being performed like an ola, should be done below the chut hasikra. The Mizbeach had a red line about halfway up, and the Karban Olas Behema's blood always went under the line, and Karban Chatas Behema's blood always went over the line. So when we put the blood on the corner in the northeast, that's like an ola, it should go under the line, and the blood on the southwest corner should go over the line, because we're doing that like a chatas. So Gemara says, do you ever find blood that you put some above the line and some below the line? So the Gemara says, yes, you do. And I will give you 2 examples where you find blood that goes somewhat above the line and somewhat below the line. First of all, when the Kohen Gadol sprayed blood on the paroches, so it says he did some up and some down. He did 1 up and 7 down. So the word that's used to describe there is kimatzlif, like a matzlif. Rashi says he doesn't know what the word matzlif means. He hasn't seen the word matzlif anywhere. And modern Hebrew tzalaf is a sniper. It means to aim. But Rashi says he doesn't have this word. So the Gemara is assuming that kimatzlif means that you put some above and some below, some on the top half and some on the bottom half. So you see that the blood sometimes goes some up and some down. So do the same thing here. So Rav Yehuda explains that's not what kamatzlif means. It doesn't mean some goes on the top part of the parochas and some goes on the bottom part of the parochas. What it means is that you aim it in an upward motion or a downward motion. So the downward motion would be like a whipping from top to bottom, like a whipping hand motion of spraying downwards. And then the other one would be an upward motion, but they are both in the same part of the parochas. You don't find that the blood sometimes goes up and sometimes goes down. Gemara says, I'll show you another source. There's a Mishnah that describes the application of blood on the inner Mizbeach, the Mizbeach HaPnimi, and it says you should put it al taharo shel Mizbeach, on the taharo of the Mizbeach. What does that mean? On the taharo of the Mizbeach. 7 times you do it. What does it mean? What's a taharo? So the Gemara says taharo probably means like people call the afternoon tahar tiharo, the middle of the day. So tahar means middle. So if you're putting it on the middle of the Mizbeach, then it's going to be, some will be up and some will be down. It can't be that they're all going to be exactly in the middle. 7 applications are all going to be exactly in the middle. The says, no, it's not what tahar means. Tahar doesn't mean the middle. Tahar means the roof. It means the top surface. Like we say, Ke'etzem hashamayim l'toihar, like the sky in its toihar, toihar meaning the top, the roof, like the sky is the roof of the world. Okay, the Gemara's next question. What is the reason that you put the first application like a carbon ola, and the second application like a carbon chatas? Why don't you do first like a chatas and then like an ola? So the Gemara says because it's a carbon ola. You're doing a chatas halacha to a carbon ola, but it's still primarily a carbon ola, so you're going to do the ola application first. So the Gemara says, okay, why do you do the northeast corner and the southwest corner? Why don't you do the southeast corner? I mean, in a chatas you could do any corner. So how come the one corner that you plan to do is going to be the northeast corner? So Gemara says because it is a carbon ola, and in a carbon ola you have to put on the northeast corner and the southwest corner. And the reason for that is that you could only put it on the corner that has the yisod. Yisod is the foundation. That's a frame that went around the bottom of the mizbeach, almost like a molding. It was an amma high and an amma wide, running around the bottom edge of the Mizbeach, but it was only on 2 sides. It was only on the north side and on the west side, and it stuck out in Amma past the north side and the west side. But the southeast side had no yisod at all, and therefore you can't use that corner. It's got to be put on the south. It cannot be put on the southeast corner. It's got to be put on the northwest, on the northeast, and the southwest. All right. The Gemara's next question is why do you first put it on the northeast corner and then on the southwest? Why don't you first do southwest and then the northeast? I understand you have to use those 2 corners, but why this order? So it says the reason is because whenever you approach the Mizbeach to do an avoda, you do it the same way you were doing it as if you were coming up the ramp. And if you came up the ramp was on the southern wall of the Mizbeach, and you were supposed to turn to the right. You always turn right, which means you're turning east. Turning east, you're going to pass the southeast corner, because you can't put anything here, there's no yisod. You're going to keep moving, you'll move to the northern eastern corner, will be the first thing you will get to first. As you turn, you come up the south, you turn east, and you first hit the southeast corner. There's nothing to do there. Then you continue along the east wall, northward toward the northeast wall. You apply it there. Then you got to go all the way around to the west and then down to the south until you get to the other corner where you can apply it. And that is where you will do the second application. And that solves all of the Gemara's questions. There's one more. The Gemara asks, how do you know that you're supposed to do a activity of a chatas on a carbon ola? Maybe when it says that you combine a chatas and ola, it means to say you do an activity of an ola on the carbon chatas. Maybe you're supposed to do a bit of an ola on the chatas that was described. Gemara says no. The wording of the pasuk sounds like you're supposed to do a chatas on an ola. It says se'irizim echad chatas lashem al ola satamin. You should do a bit of chatas on the ola satamid. So to the ola satamid, on the ola satamid, you should do some chatas activities. Alright, now the Gemara is going to go to a new subject, and this is that we had previously seen that there was a machlokes between the author of the Mishnayos Maseches Tamid and the author of the Mishnayos Maseches Yoma. The Gemara is now going to show another contradiction between Maseches Tamid and Maseches Yoma, and the Gemara is going to say that again it's different authors, and that's why you will find the contradictory indications. And here, the contradiction will be, what was the use of the 4 offices, the 4 rooms, which surrounded the Beis HaMoked? In the Beis HaMikdash, there was a room called the Beis HaMoked, where there was a fire burning for the Kohanim to warm themselves. That's where they spent the night. Half of it was in the Azara and Kodesh area, half of it was outside the Azara, and there was actually a little piece of wood that stuck up from the floor to mark the difference, so that they could know that they were supposed to sleep in the non-Kodesh half. And there were 4 corners, there were 4 rooms in the 4 corners that had different functions. So what were these rooms? So the Gemara first quotes the Mishnah in Maseches Talmud that says that the function was as follows. The northeast corner is where they kept the sheep. There were at least 6 sheep that were kept, that were checked for movement, that were set aside as a storage for the carbon ola. for the carbon olas talmid that they were bringing every day. Now that was the function of the northeast corner. It doesn't say what the other specific corners were, but the other rooms, it says, was the room of chosamos, the room of seals, that's tokens, that somebody who came to the Beis HaMikdash to bring a carbon and needed to buy nesachim, he needed to buy flour and oil, or water, or milk, flour and oil or wine to go along with his karbanos. Instead of bringing his own, he would bring money. He would give money to a person who would give him a token for which type of nesachim he needs, and he would take the token to a supply room where he would get and collect the actual supplies. So there was a room that was called the Lishkas Chosamos where they kept those tokens. Another one of the corners of the Beis HaMoked was a small Beis HaMoked, was a smaller version of it. And the last one was the room where the Lechem HaPanim was made by the people of the house of Garmu, who knew how to make the Lechem HaPanim. Now, that's that Mishnah. Now, there's a different Mishnah in Maseches Midos. All right, so this one was in Talmud. Maseches Midos contradicts it, and it says that the four corner offices were as follows. The north east corner was where the Beis HaTevila was. That contradicts the Mishnah in the Talmud that says that's where the sheep were kept. So there was Tevila, there were steps down to a mikvah in that corner. According to the Mishnah in Midos, the southwest corner was where they kept the sheep, not like it says in the Mishnah in the Talmud. The Lechem HaPanim was kept in the southeast office. It was baked in the southeast office. Okay, that doesn't contradict. But the northeast office, according to the Mishnah in Midos, was where the kings of Chashmonaim stored the pieces of the Mizbech that were destroyed by the Greeks. And that, again, is not one of the four offices at all, according to the Mishnah in Talmud. The other one is for Chosamos. So how do you resolve this contradiction as to what these are? So the Gemara says it's different Tanaim, and the Gemara and the next stuff will launch into the specifics of what each Tana holds and how he works out the
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.